Welcome. In this video I'm going to be taking a look at these Channellock 909 crimper pliers. So if you find this video helpful and you want to purchase some of these, I'll put a link to them in the description. If you use that link, it helps me out a little bit and doesn't cost you anything extra. So these are 9.5 inches. They're made in the USA. These will crimp insulated and non-insulated connectors. This works with 10 to 22 gauge wire. And here's some more specs on the back. The cutter edge is laser heat treated. They're made of forged high carbon steel. So let's get these open. Got them out, just barely. Now these have a little oil on them, so I'll just wipe that off. That's just to protect them. Needless to say, I don't want to get all of the oil off, but if it's sitting on the surface, it's not really doing much. So there's no play in these. They're a little bit stiff, and that's actually how I like my pliers from the factory. A little bit stiff, and I'll work them in. Here we have the two crimp areas. We have insulated and non-insulated, and then we have a cutter there on the tip. Since these are 9.5 inches long, you can get lots of leverage on these. So I'm working on a project where I need to crimp some wires. So I'll get the parts here and I'll do some crimping with these. So here I'm working on a project in a car and I'm replacing this 12-volt socket with this USB socket, and they have different connectors on the back. So this plugs into the car with a specialized connector, but it uses these spade terminals. So what I want to do is create a little spade extension cable. So it will plug into the plug and then plug into the back of the terminal. So I can convert from this to this. So to do that, I'll need to crimp some connectors. So here I have some crimp terminals. I have the two outlets. Okay, the wire that came with this was 18 gauge wire, and that would certainly work. When I looked in the car, I think the wire there was also 18 gauge. It was very thin. This does have a fuse on it, but I don't need that for this application because this is already a fused circuit. So if this is what you have, you can certainly use that, but I happen to have this 12 gauge silicon wire, super flexible, so I'm going to use a length of this. Now, I only have one color here, so I'll have to mark which side is ground. So I'll cut off a length of this. And I want enough to make a loop, so I'll just kind of cut this in half. Now what to say, this is definitely overkill wire for this application. So I have this wire fee heat shrink connector kit. So for 12 gauge wire, we want the yellow connectors. So we'll have two of these and two of these. So this is going to go on this end here. This will go here, and we'll have our little extension cable. So I'll need to strip these about a 1/4 inch, maybe a tiny bit more. So I'll get those stripped. So I'll give that a little bit of a twist. And I'll stick it in the crimp connector. Try not to lose any of the strands. I'll kind of twist it as I put it through there. And I want it to just stick out the other end, but I don't want the insulation inside the crimp area. So now I'll go to the insulated crimp section of the pliers. I'll line those up like so, and I'll crimp that down. Now these 9-inch handles give me great leverage to get a really good crimp on here. So here we have that crimp down. If I give it a tug, it's not coming out. So we'll do the other side now. I want to make sure my crimp is lined up in the same orientation as the plug, or as the socket, I guess you'd say. I'll crimp that. And here we have our little extension. And I just thought of a way to label these. I have these wire fee heat shrink tubing pieces, and I did purchase all of this myself. But if you want to purchase any of these, I'll put a link below to everything. Now these are 4:1 shrink ratio connectors, so I should have put some shrink wrap on here before I put the connectors on. But I just thought of this. So I'll find a shrink wrap that will fit over here. Looks like that will. It's a 5/8 inch. It's a 5/16. So I will put one of these on each side. So I'll do the other connector now. Forgot to put the heat shrink on again, but it's no big deal. Okay, so these wire feed crimp connectors have glue in them, and they do a 3-to-1 shrink. So I have my heat gun here. Okay, here we have our two cables. I use that silicone wire with the wire feed connectors. They have the heat shrink on them with glue. So you have the crimp connector, you have the glue and the heat shrink all holding that together. And then to identify these, because I only had one color wire, I used the wire feed 4-to-1 shrink wrap. So I was able to slip it over the terminal and shrink it down like so. So those are the Channellock 909 crimp pliers. I really like the leverage these have. They feel good in the hand, they're very solid. It has that cutter on there so you can cut wire. These gave me really solid crimps here. But I do want to mention, along with the pliers, you want to use good quality crimp connectors. I've used some before that were just like thin sheet metal, and they won't hold with any plier. And I think these wire feed connectors are going to be good quality and last a long time. So that's all I'm going to cover in this video. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. If you like this video, please click like. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, I'd appreciate if you could do that. And thanks for watching. Until next time, goodbye.